A terrifying haunted doll horror story. The Housekeeper's Secret. The town of Hollow Creek was small, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's business or thought they did. But there was one house people whispered about only in hushed tones. Ravenwood Manor, a sprawling, ivy-covered estate on the edge of town. For decades, it had stood empty, looming over the valley like a dark sentinel. When Clara Mitchell, 19 and desperate for work, saw the notice pinned on the grocer's board housekeeper wanted, Ravenwood Manor. Generous pay. She hesitated. The old women at church always said that house was cursed, but Clara's mother had fallen ill, and her younger siblings needed food. Ignoring the chill in her spine, she tore down the notice and walked straight to the address the next day. Mr. Whitaker, the caretaker, greeted her with a stiff nod. He was a thin man, stooped from years of work, with pale eyes that darted nervously around the corridors. His instructions were simple. Clean the east wing first, and above all, never open the locked trunk in the nursery. Clara didn't ask why. She simply nodded. The nursery was unlike the rest of the dusty manor. The wallpaper, though faded, showed dancing children and blooming flowers. In the corner stood a rocking chair, gently swaying though no wind stirred. And near the far wall was the trunk, mahogany wood, brass fittings, and a heavy lock. At first, Clara obeyed, but as days turned to weeks, she felt eyes on her in that room. Tiny footsteps echoed in the hallway behind her, but when she turned, the corridor was empty. Sometimes she heard a child's laughter, faint as breath, followed by the creak of the rocking chair. One evening, while polishing the nursery windows, Clara tripped over the trunk. Her hand brushed against the lock, and to her surprise, it clicked open as though it had been waiting. Against her better judgment, she lifted the lid. Inside lay a doll. It was porcelain, about 2 feet tall, dressed in a once fine lace gown yellowed with age. Its face bore hairline cracks, and its blue glass eyes gleamed unnaturally in the dim light. A tag sewn into the hem of its dress read simply, Margaret. The moment Clara touched it, the room grew colder. The rocking chair stilled. She dropped the doll back into the trunk, but the unease lingered, clinging to her like smoke. That night, she woke to the sound of soft humming a lullaby drifting up the stairs. She crept to the nursery. The trunk was open, the doll sitting upright in the rocking chair, swaying gently back and forth. From that moment on, life in Ravenwood changed. Objects moved when Clara wasn't looking. Doors slammed in empty rooms. She found small, dusty footprints trailing across the nursery floor. At times, the doll's expression seemed different, its painted lips curling into a faint smile, or its head tilted as though listening. Clara tried to tell Mr. Whitaker, but he grew pale and shook his head. "Don't speak of her," he muttered. "The master lost his daughter, Margaret, in this house. The doll was hers. It should have stayed locked away, but it was too late. Clara had touched it." Each day, the phenomena grew worse. At dinner, she'd hear a child's voice whisper her name. At night, she awoke to see the doll at the foot of her bed, though she swore she'd left it locked away. Once, while scrubbing the hall, she saw a reflection in the mirror, not her own, but a little girl with hollow eyes standing behind her. The final straw came when Clara returned from the market one evening to find the nursery door ajar. Inside, the doll sat in the middle of the room, but now its porcelain face bore a jagged crack across the cheek that hadn't been there before. Beside it, scratched into the wooden floorboards, were words written by a small, trembling hand. "Don't leave me." Clara fled the nursery, heart pounding. She knew then that Margaret's spirit was not resting and the doll was its prison. The curse of Margaret. Clara could no longer ignore the truth. The doll was more than a relic of a dead child. It was alive with something restless, something vengeful. Determined to find answers, she sought out the oldest resident of Hollow Creek, Father Alcott, a retired priest who lived near the churchyard. When Clara described the doll, Father Alcott's face drained of color. "Ravenwood's curse," he whispered. "Margaret wasn't just a child. Her mother dabbled in forbidden rites, rituals to bind a soul against death. When Margaret died in the nursery fire, her spirit clung to the vessel closest to her. That doll, can it be freed?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. The priest nodded grimly. "Perhaps, but it will fight you. Spirits bound so tightly do not let go willingly. You'll need holy water, salt, and courage." At midnight, in the nursery where it all began. That night, Clara returned to Ravenwood with Father Alcott and Mr. Whitaker. Midnight struck, and the ritual began. They circled the doll with salt, candles flickering in the heavy air. Father Alcott began to chant in Latin, his voice steady though his hand shook. The doll's eyes gleamed. The temperature plummeted. From the shadows, a child's giggle rang out, then a scream that rattled the windows. The rocking chair hurled itself across the room. Clara clutched her candle as the doll slowly rose to its feet, though no hand touched it. Its cracked porcelain face twisted, lips parting in a jagged, unnatural smile. "Clara," a voice whispered not with sound, but inside her mind. "Stay with me. Forever." The walls bled soot. The floorboards shook. One by one, the candles extinguished until only Clara's remained. She felt a pull, like invisible fingers tugging her toward the doll. Father Alcott splashed holy water onto the porcelain. The doll shrieked, a sound that pierced bone, and its face split wider, fractures racing across its head. Black smoke seeped out, coiling into the air like grasping hands. "Finish it," the priest cried. Summoning all her strength, Clara grabbed the doll. It was ice cold, vibrating in her grip as though alive. She hurled it against the stone hearth. The porcelain shattered into dozens of shards. For a moment, silence. Then, from the broken pieces, a shape rose, the shadow of a little girl, her hair burned, her eyes hollow. She looked at Clara with sorrow and rage, whispering, "You broke me." Father Alcott thrust the crucifix forward, chanting louder. The figure screamed, dissolving into smoke that filled the room. The wind howled, extinguishing Clara's candle. And then darkness. When the light returned, the nursery was still. The doll was gone. Nothing left but shards of porcelain scattered across the floor. The air felt lighter, almost breathable again. Mr. Whitaker sank to his knees in relief. Father Alcott muttered a prayer, his voice weary. Clara stared at the fragments. A sense of victory filled her, but also dread. For though the doll was broken, the memory of Margaret's eyes lingered. Hollow watching. The manor was sold months later. Clara never returned, though she sometimes woke in the night, certain she heard a child's giggle echoing through her dreams. And in another town, miles away, a young couple found an antique doll's head in a flea market, its cracked face smiling faintly. They bought it, thinking it quaint. The curse of Margaret was not gone, only passed on.